Congressman, welcome to democracy. I've got some great questions for you from folks in the audience and a couple from the internet. So thank you for being with us today and welcome to Palm Beach State College. Our first question comes from Jackie Healy from Port St. Lucie. Exactly what would you do to the tax code that would ensure job creation?
I think the most important thing we need to do to the tax code, and you saw that as part of the House GOP budget plan, we go from 6 different tax brackets, we'll bring it down to 2, 25 and 10. The Ways and Means Committee will make the determination as far as that cut line for income. But to talk about raising more taxes on those brackets, you know, the 35, 38% bracket, all you're going to do is put more and more pressure on the people that are out there trying to be the job creators. We have to understand that small business owners operate as subchapter as LLCs. So we need to reduce the tax burden upon them, and as well the regulatory burden. Those are the 2 critical things. Now the other thing, I sit on the Committee on Small Business. The number one thing that they will always tell you is about access to capital. And when you look at some of the unintended consequences, the second, third order effects of the Dodd-Frank law, we see a lot of our small community banks suffer. Your larger banks can contend with a lot of the regulators and examiners to continue to come down, but small community banks are really being hurt. And that's where small business owners have that link to get the capital that they need to be able to keep Americans, South Floridians at work. One of these weekends is take an opportunity to drive around your local community and count the closed storefronts. We got to get them back open. That's the backbone of this country.
Carolyn and John Chapwick, I believe, asked Republicans for a balanced budget amendment. The debt ceiling vote will come up. Why don't you simply not raise the debt ceiling limit? Isn't this the same as a balanced budget?
Well, I don't think that you will see any of us going to raise the debt ceiling again. Look, I'll be very honest. I wanted to give Washington, D.C. an opportunity to work. I looked at what happened back last August, and I figured it was a 70 to 75% solution. I never really believed that that super committee thing would work, because I think there are some people on the other side that went in with some very hardline stances. They did not want to see the right things happen as far as, you know, how do we reduce the size and scope of government. But the most important thing, we're not going to turn around in one election cycle, in 2 years or 4 years. But at least we need to have a glide path. At least we need to have a vision how we're going to get the financial situation in the United States of America balanced. How we're going to get this situation on the right footing. And it has to start with reducing the size and scope of federal government, the spending that is coming out of Washington, D.C., and that's the most important thing that we have to do. And as I said earlier, the last time we had welfare reform was a Democrat president. The last time we did cut back on government agencies and programs was a Democrat president. So this is not a partisan issue. It's a common sense American issue. We just need to have willing partners on the other side that meet us on that battlefield.
I thought this one came from my mother, but it's actually from Brian Blessey, but Mom would have asked it anyways. A lot of your slide up there showed spending on Medicare and Medicaid. What changes do you think should be made to Medicare and Medicaid?
Well, as you know, first of all, I don't think that we should have $575 billion of cuts to Medicare, and that's something that's part of patient protection for care. But let's be very honest, the average American is paying in, you know, about $110,000, $115,000 in Medicare, but they're getting back closer to $300,000 of benefits. That's a problem. We've got to clean up that system. Now, what Paul Ryan and the House GOP has introduced is a premium support plan. It gives you an option. If you want to stay in traditional Medicare, you can stay in traditional Medicare. If you want to go out there and have insurance companies that compete for you, then you can do that. But to do nothing means that it's not going to be there. Now, the other thing is, South Florida is ground zero for fraud and abuse in Medicare. And that's something we've got to clean up. There's hundreds of billions of dollars in cleaning up the fraud and abuse in Medicare. We've got to have some type of plan that gets that Medicare spending under control.
You mentioned the Ryan budget. Fred Schiebel from Palm Beach Gardens says that Senator Rand Paul has said that the Ryan budget does not go far enough and takes too long to balance the budget with about $5 trillion in cuts in 5 years. What's your view of the Ryan budget, and what do you think will be the final budget?
Well, I don't think there will be a budget this year because the one that passed in the House, the Senate's not going to take up, and that's a sad state of affairs. Now, you know, we can be very austere, and we can try to make the budget balance in sooner years. One of the things that came up, and I voted for this budget plan, was the Republican Study Committee, which is the conservative branch of the GOP in the House. And what they did was they froze federal government spending at 2008 levels. And in freezing federal government spending at 2008 levels, we would end up having a balanced budget within 8 to 9 years. With the Ryan House GOP approved budget, it goes out to, I believe, with 15 to 16 years before it balances. So it really is all about, how close do we want to start cutting our federal government size, scope, and spending. Now, we can sit up here and try to do it right now on a dime. I don't want to spend the American government and spend the American people on the dime right now. I do not want to see us implement, really austere, damaging, measures and things of that nature. I want us to be smart about it. And I thought that the RSC budget, which held us at 2008 levels, was a good plan. It did not pass the House, and so then I voted for the Ryan budget plan that came out of the Budget Committee for the House GOP. But we have got to at least balance the budget. Unfortunately, President Obama's budget and the Democrat budget that was brought up raises a whole bunch of taxes, but it never balances. So what's the point of raising taxes on the American people if you're in states that you're never going to balance the budget?
Let me ask a political question, sir. Your name has been mentioned as a potential nominee for vice president. Lyndon Johnson had the chance to run for re-election to the Senate and for vice president at the same time, but I don't think Florida gives you that choice. Would you choose, if your nominee for president asked you, would you choose to run for vice president rather than for re-election?
First of all, nobody's going to ask me. Okay, and the thing is that, look, those of you who know me know that 5 years ago, I was in the desert of Kandahar, Afghanistan. And some people sent me an email and asked me when I came back would I consider doing this. Anytime the American people or your country asks you to step up to the plate and try to serve, being in a camouflage uniform, a suit and tie, if you truly believe in the fundamental principles and values of this republic, you're going to step up and do it. Now, if someone decides they want to call and ask me to run beside them, first place I go is to my knees. And I got to pray about it. In the second place I go, I'm still on my knees. I'm asking permission of my wife. And then we'll go from there. But if this country asks me to step up, I will step up and serve this country.
Lisa from West Palm Beach asked via Facebook, when a homeowner's insurance and property taxes are more than their mortgage payment, do you support Florida homeowners crossing state lines to obtain homeowners insurance in order to meet their needs?
Well, it's just the same with healthcare insurance. I mean, I believe that we need to open up the competition and stop having state-by-state many monopolies. And when you look at Citizens, for example, this was supposed to be a government insurance program of last resort. And the next thing you know, due to undue competition, whatever, Citizens becomes the insurance program of first resort. And now it has taken away the competition thereof. So I think that, when government gets engaged and gets involved in the free market, excuse it. And that's the thing that we have to do. So yes, I will look for any means by which we can, reduce costs by implementing competition out there amongst the private sector companies, especially insurance companies.
Lowell Levine asks, why does the United States need 850 bases around the world that cost $1 trillion?
Lowell, good question. And I will tell you that is a relic of a Cold War era mentality. And I think that we have to move away from what we really tried to have, which was a forward deployed military, into a power projection type of military. Because that's kind of an antiquated thought. And it really does cost a lot of resources and things of that nature. And that's why I think one of the key things we must do is strengthen our maritime forces. A little tidbit, a lot of people don't realize that the Army actually has more amphibious landings assault than the United States Marine Corps. So the Army is used to being on sea, on ships. So that's something that we need to start looking at. How do we truly become a joint force? How do we truly project the power of the United States of America all across this globe? How do we look at